Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. It's that time again. It's time for another Executions Graded video. Gosh, guys, I am so excited. We've already looked at Zhan Hu's for this season, but now we got to take a look at the next two, Conqueror and Ocelotl. I am really pumped about this, especially since everyone, and I do mean everyone, has been asking me to take a look at Conqueror's execution and tell what I think about it. In fact, I was on Reddit just the other day, and I saw a bunch of people saying how they couldn't wait to hear my grade for it. So I look forward to settling all that with you guys today. But before we get into it, if you are brand new to the series, take a look in the upper right-hand corner right now. You will see a link to a video where you can hear the rubric for how I grade all these. And wait till the end of the video and you'll be given a link to a playlist where you can see all of my Executions Graded videos up until now, where you can hear all the heroes' grades overall. Y'all looking forward to that? Awesome. Go check that out if you're brand new. If you are familiar with the series, you probably don't need this, but I do want to quickly go over how I grade everything since everyone seems to get confused. So I grade executions based on 4 criteria. Number 1, how lethal is the execution? Will this kill? Number 2, realism. Is this a realistic execution? Could it realistically be done? Number 3, efficiency. Is this a battlefield-worthy execution? Is this something that you would want to use in a real battlefield scenario? Is it quick? Is it to the point? And finally, cool factor. Is it cool? But more directly, does it fit the character's personality? And is it something that you would have fun using in the game? I take all of these factors and I give them a grade of up to 4. And that means that you can only get a total of 16 out of 16 total, which would be a 100%. And then anything less than that, I factor accordingly. And then, just like any good teacher would, as I was a former teacher, we then take all the grades and then make an average out of them so that we get an idea of just what kind of grade each hero has. And then at the end of the year, we do a full class report card where we find out what the grades of every single For Honor hero is. We've been doing this for a while and I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I know that you guys are saying, Raven, we know all this, get to the point. I'm sorry, but I feel like I have to say this because people seem to forget every time and go to the comment section to ask questions or complain. And I just wanted to get all that out there so that you guys know what I do and how I do it, okay? All right, enough preamble. We've wasted enough time. Now, normally we would have 3 executions to look at, but like I said, Zhan Hu's came out earlier in this season, so I've already looked at Zhan Hu's. We now have to look at Conquerors and Ocelotls, and we are going to start, thankfully, with Conqueror. Let's take a look. With Conqueror, we have the Windmill of Death. Oh, this is such a funny execution. Now, people were asking me if I think it's the funniest in the game. I don't know, maybe. Honestly, I think that there are other funny ones that I would have to compare it to, but I can't think of them right now. But I will admit this is a very funny one, and it is very goofy. All right, so let's talk about the grade here. So let's start with lethality. This is a lethality of 4. If you have a fast-moving heavy weight smacking into the face that frequently, that repeatedly, and with the same amount of force, you're going to break the skull open. You're going to shatter brain matter. This person is dead. I mean, even leaving that aside, look at the way the neck keeps snapping backward. The head keeps snapping back each time it hits. This is going to break the neck as well. So this person is dead on at least 3 different levels. This person is done for. So that is a lethality of 4. For realism, I'm afraid this is going to take a hit. I was kind and gave it a 2 for realism. However, I need to explain why. While this is a funny execution, this is defying physics. Notice how Warden's body is slowly falling whenever the weight keeps hitting it. As it keeps sinking down lower and lower and lower, the weight is that's swinging into his face is the only thing stopping him from falling to the ground. The problem is that's not how that would work. The weight would not be able to stop a heavy body like that from falling to the ground. You'd probably only hit it maybe twice with your flail before that thing sank to the ground. So this isn't very realistic in that sense. However, I did show a little bit of mercy to it because you could make the argument that the Warden may still be half conscious and is trying to hold himself up. I don't believe that personally, because if you look at his ankles and the legs, it looks like his full weight is coming forward. But I know that some people may make that argument, so in lieu of that, I'll give it a 2 for realism. Because, you know, the funny thing is, even if the Warden wasn't falling, you could still do this execution if he's leaned forward enough that you hit him in the chin. So you could still spin that way. Plus, what I think is cool about this is as we move into efficiency, that's right, we're going to segue into efficiency here for why I made the realism score it was. This is an efficient execution. I gave it a 3 for efficiency, and here's why. One of the problems that you have in efficiency that I think is a lot of heroes get so caught up in the execution, they're not maintaining a guard. But look at what Conqueror's doing. Conqueror has the flail spinning rapidly on one side of their body and a shield up on the other, so they are protected from everywhere but the rear, and that's actually a really good way to keep yourself safe. That flail is maintaining a certain degree of protection for them while they're taking out this opponent, and you could argue that the way they're spinning the flail is just verifying the kill, so I would be willing to allow that in terms of this grade. So I gave this an efficiency level of 3, which goes into the realism score because I feel like realistically this would be what you'd want to do with a flail, that consistent spinning strike kind of thing. Even though the body's behavior is not realistic, the use of the flail is, so that's why I gave that a 2 and efficiency a 3. And then for cool factor, I guess you all kind of saw this coming, but I am giving it a 4. It is a very, very funny execution. It is very creative. It uses the flail exactly the way it should. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that this wasn't a default execution for the Conch from the very beginning of the game. It's just that good. So I gotta say, they really cooked with this one, but that does give this grade a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. I know that many of you were hoping for a 100, but no, that is an 81%. So with the 81%, now let's take a look at their former score of 74%, and how does it factor in? If we add 81% to the average score of 74, we get a 74 again. Yep, there was no change. It didn't go up or down. It stayed the same. And that's a little disappointing, and I know some of y'all are disappointed because you really wanted this Conqueror execution to just blow them out of the park. But I'll be real honest, as cool as it is, again, I give it high cool factor points. The realism score did hurt it. And some of you are going to argue, and people always argue this, like realism doesn't matter in this game, we shouldn't count it. Well, the thing is, part of what my channel does, it looks at everything from a historical and realistic perspective. I try to keep that consistent, and so I've got to stay consistent here. And so I know it's disappointing, but that is the way the rigmarole rolls. And so, and you know, this happens a lot. There are plenty of executions I like that don't get great grades because something about them does hold them back. So please know that this isn't me making a slight against Conqueror. This is just me being consistent to my own rules. All right, so with that out of the way, an 81% for this execution and a 74% average grade for Conqueror right now. Let's move on to Ocelot. For Ocelot, we have Aztec Guillotine. All right, can we see that again? Oh, all right. Well. Okay, so for lethality, the head came off, so that's an automatic 4. Anytime the head comes off in an execution like this, it's an automatic 4 for lethality, because if your head comes off, you're dead. You know, there's no arguing that. Like, your head is gone, you're dead. For realism, okay, this is a 1 for realism. Y'all who have followed my channel for a while and know how I grade these things know my opinion on decapitations. I don't mind decapitations, but they have to make sense, and this one does not make sense. The Maquito sword club that he's using is made of barbs of historically obsidian shards or glass shards that you would use, and what you do is you strike and then run the blade along the limb or flesh that you're striking, and the sharp obsidian shards will cut jagged grooves through the body and basically act like a saw. But what we have here is we have the Maquito shoving up against the throat and then just squeezing backward until the neck comes off. That's not how that would work. And if you want proof of this, I don't recommend doing this, but this is something you can do. Take a knife or something like that and wrap your hand around the blade and squeeze. You won't get much of a cut. And the reason why is because for blades to really cut, you need to run them along the surface. You need to run them along the surface so that the blade can actually cut. If all you do is squeeze and press into it, it's not usually going to do much. In order for you to cut something with just that kind of pressure, you need incredible amount of force and speed to take it off, and you're not going to get that here. So the head coming off here is not realistic. So I had to give this a 1 for realism. This is not very realistic. The only reason I gave it a 1 and not a 0 is because everything else about the execution I could see happening. From the way he comes around and puts him into that hold and then flips him, all that I could believe, but taking the head off was a step too far. So this is a 1 for realism. For efficiency, I'll give it a 4. I'll actually give this a 4. This is very quick. It's well done. And yes, I know he puts away his spear, and many people have said, oh, but don't you get upset when he puts away the weapon? Yes, I do. But in this case, he still had his sword club out. He still had the maquito, and he was still able to use it to very, very good effect. So I will give this a 4 for efficiency because he handled the execution quickly, he took care of business fast, and he was back on his feet in an instant. He wasn't just going to lay there and gloat or take a breather. He threw him, got up, he was good to go. So I will give that an efficiency of 4. For cool factor, I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to give this a 2 for cool factor. Honestly, it's not bad. I'm not against it at all. It's kind of neat, but I'll be honest, it didn't wow me. It just didn't wow me. I think what I really like about it is the sound effect. If you listen closely to when the head comes off, you'll hear a crunching noise. Listen. I do like that. I think that is very creepy and very cool. I like that sound effect. And I also like the way that he flips him. I think that that's really cool. But the rest of it, I'm just not too big a fan of. It looks very choreographed and way too simple. It doesn't really scream Ocelot's behavior and attitude toward me. Like, when I think Ocelot, I think of this wild, very fierce, ferocious predator. This didn't scream that to me. But it's still enough of a good execution that I was willing to give it a 2. So that is my stance on this execution, which gives this execution an overall grade of 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. And yes, giggity. Everyone wants me to say that whenever we get a grade like that. So taking that 69% and factoring it into Ocelot's existing grade of 80%, this is the first new execution Ocelot's gotten. So what does that mean for his grade? Where will it go? Well, unfortunately, the 69% brings it down to a 78%. And some of you might be thinking, why a 2% drop, man? Well, honestly, the reason is because when you have so few executions, even one grade can have a major impact on the overall average score. The more executions you have, the more grades to factor in, the less likely you'll get a major change like this. Ask your teacher about it, or your math teacher if you're not familiar with how grades work. So that does mean that Ocelot's new average grade is a 78%. It did go down from 80, which is disappointing, but honestly, this execution could have been better, I feel like, so that is my stance as far as that is concerned. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all of the executions for this season title update 1. We'll have to wait for next season to see what new executions we get, and since we're getting a new hero very soon, I'll be doing an executions graded on them as well, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much for watching. What did you guys think of the Conqueror and Ocelot executions? I know you guys really like the Conqueror one. I've seen all the comments. Do you guys agree with my score? Do you agree with my grades? Let me know down in the comments section, respectfully, of course. And as always, guys, you are the bomb. Thank you all for being fans and just watching my stuff, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.